Grandma, can I have the chocolate chips?
This secret recipe moment made possible by Emory Heart and Vascular Center. When Grandma needed heart care, she came to Emory. The difference? Emory Healthcare performs more heart procedures annually than anyone else in Georgia, which means better outcomes for our patients. And we offer advanced and personalized treatments developed by our top specialists that others don't. Like Grandma knows, where you start your heart care matters. Smart Cookie. EmoryHealthcare.org/smartcookie.
Good news, everyone. Talking Futurama is coming back for Talking Futurama Season 2, Part 2.
Fresher than a summer ham, this podcast comes every Friday. And if you sign up at the $5 level at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons, you can hear each episode as it goes live.
That's right. Sign up today at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons for $5 to hear Talking Futurama every Friday throughout the rest of 2020 and also all the previous episodes we've done so far.
So head over to patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons now, or we're going to clamp you.
Shut up and take my money.
Cartoons from present and the past. Every week will be an animated bash. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! Maybe a short but mostly shows. We'll talk, we'll analyze, exploring as we go. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to What a Cartoon, the podcast where our motto is it's better to be safe than sorry. I'm one of your hosts, the energy gathering addict, Bob Mackey, and this is an audio exploration of every cartoon ever. Who is here with me today?
Hey, it's Henry Gilbert, and don't believe those rumors that I kiss my pillow at night, okay?
And today's episode is the Sailor Moon R episode, Mirror, Mirror on the Wall. And this episode is brought to us by a wonderful patron. Isn't that right, Henry?
Yes, this is chosen by premium patron Alex, who has had some really good picks in the past. And for his final pick, he wanted us to return to something that we had covered before back in early 2019.
Wow.
Sailor Moon.
Early 2019? Well, that was what, like 15 years ago?
Yes, I know. It felt way longer ago to me. But why did Alex choose this? Well, he says, I wanted to request the return to Sailor Moon because the original 2019 podcast was mostly clip-free. I also wanted to laser focus on the original Deke dub. While it's definitely dated these days, it is often charming and hilarious. For good and bad, the Deke dub of Sailor Moon was a foundational series that helped further popularize anime in the West in the 90s. My sister actually helped me pick the particular episode from a couple of ideas because she liked that episode's interesting character dynamics. Plus, I enjoyed the premise of the characters putting on a play. So there you go. Yes, thank you, Alex, for picking this one. Because, yes, when we previously covered Sailor Moon R, actually, like 5 episodes before this one in the episode order,
yes,
when we covered it, it was very much focused on the Japanese origin of it or the re-release of it in 2015 in more uncut, accurate subtitling and all that. We touched a little bit, but not a ton on how it originally got popular in North America.
I'm sure I'll go over the details, Henry, but the basic story of this is a lot like Dragon Ball or Dragon Ball Z, in that there was a big syndicated package that did not do well at all, and because of that, it was very cheap for Cartoon Network to scoop up, and that's when it really took off.
That is a simplified version of it, but yeah, that is pretty much how Sailor Moon in the United States got very popular. There is a Canadian YTV component to it, which I will discuss as well. Yeah.
And I will say, I might have said this on other podcasts, but there's this weird gap in which, you know, there were these syndicated packages and then Cartoon Network picked it up and made the shows really popular. And then there'd be like a few years of like, oh, are they going to, you know, produce more? Are they going to dub more? And then eventually they would. But by the time they did, I had moved past that. Like, yes. I never saw most of Dragon Ball Z because of that. I never saw most of Sailor Moon because of that. Like, it's like, oh, I'm watching Cowboy Bebop, an adult anime now.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Enjoy your Dragon Balls. But now I'm a big fan of all this stuff.
In the 2 years it would take to finally make new episodes of it, you and me in our age group had also gotten part-time jobs to buy all the uncut anime we wanted. And we didn't need to settle for Cartoon Network anime. But it was a giant on-ramp for so many anime fans in the late 90s, and a big part of that is just the funny coincidence of failed syndication turning into something popular on cable.
Exactly what happened with Futurama and Family Guy as well.
Yeah. You know, Adult Swim and Toonami is a huge part of so much of animation. I think it kind of gets overlooked a little bit. Even just, you don't even have to talk about the original content made for Toonami or Adult Swim. Like, just the stuff they licensed created so much demand and popularity. And another reason I'm glad we're returning back to it is that because, you know, since we first did Sailor Moon, I learned a bit more about the creation of the series thanks to doing our Revolutionary Girl Utena one, which was basically just a lot of the top people who worked on the early seasons of Sailor Moon then made Utena. And on top of that, there's been some more information on Crystal, the Sailor Moon, you know, remake, reboot series, including at the time of this recording, you know, Netflix is just about to get the theatrical released finale films of it for Eternal, which I believe take the Super S seasons and turn that into a film itself, which I have seen some people really like Crystal, but I recently read a couple reviews from fans more around my age, and they're still just like, Eternal got a little better, but they still prefer the original series. Like, at the time of this recording, Lindsay Loveridge on Anime News Network, she really explained how daunting and tiring it is to be a Sailor Moon fan who got into it in the late 90s and still is into it today, and it's just ups and downs, so many imperfect things. She brought up a lot of even when we talk about this Deke dub of like, oh, it's got imperfections, she's still like, well, even the uncut versions or the new Viz versions, there's always problems with them. She was just like, Crystal looked really bad at first. It got a little better. Still not that great in Lindsay's opinion here. But I would suggest everybody look up the article called Sailor Moon Got Me Into This Business and I'm Exhausted. But yeah, I mean, I watched this back in the day on first really on Toonami because I watched, I think we went over this in 2019, but I watched the first episode that aired on Fox Saturday morning, but then in my area, if we had Sailor Moon, it was like a 6 a.m. show, and I never saw it. Yeah.
I think, so this was back in the air, again, this is a repeated story, but it's been over 2 years, so 2.5 years actually, so you might have forgotten it, but back in the mid-90s, it was hard to see anime on TV, if you can believe it. It was just like one of the last few years where that was possible, and whenever I would find it, I would just treasure it. And I believe I was like sick home one day, or like I had a doctor's appointment, so I just didn't go to the rest of the school day. And there was an episode of Sailor Moon on, and I was like, oh my God, this is anime and it's on TV, but it's also about a bunch of girls, so I don't know if it's cool for me to watch this. So I remember just being very anxious but excited about this show.
You weren't sure what your fellow bros at the middle school would think of that.
I can't tell anyone about this, but it's so cool.
They have dresses and stuff. I can't. Yeah, it was. As I learned looking up the North American history of Sailor Moon, that was a major problem for them in the syndication marketing game. But so, yes, here's a quick refresher on the things we covered in the original one, because this revisit of Sailor Moon R is really going to be focused on the Deke dub of it and the folks who worked on that. But the short version of the background is comic artist extraordinaire Naoko Takeuchi. She created this manga series in 1991 about this funny, clumsy crybaby schoolgirl named Usagi who leads a group of fellow young ladies called the Sailor Senshi who would battle Monster of the Week Sentai style. It was this fun, very inventive for the time combo of magical girl meets Sentai monster fighting show. And part of her goal was like, I want to make a thing that gives girls their own type of Power Ranger style show. And it was this weird mix of like romance, action, growing up, astrology, time travel. Like it's full of very wacky stuff.
Incest.
Also, yeah, a lot of weird Freudian stuff in there too, for sure. A lot of Electra complex with old Reedy there. The series was a big hit in the comics, very quickly adapted by industry giant Toei, which already had a huge success in the case of Dragon Ball as well. And Toei put on some of its best animators, including future Utena co-creator Kunihiko Ikuhara. And they were adapting Takeuchi's comics at a ridiculous rate. They were very close behind the series in the comics, which led to them having to do a lot of like very fast adaptations to just pad out scenes or add more comedy to it. There were multiple stories that she wasn't always happy with the adaptations made, but she was so busy with her comic at the time that there wasn't really much she could do about it. Plus, she was a relatively new comic artist without a lot of power back then. And Ikuhara and other folks who worked on it were just like, this was an insane schedule. It broke us. Like, it was awful working on the show. But they really, under those crazy conditions, they made a very memorable, exciting, like, and funny show.
Yeah, I do like how it is different than the manga because I don't like the manga that much, actually, what I've read of it. I don't know if this is just an offensive comment or what, but sometimes I like when the shoujo manga has like a more like boisterous and bawdy anime adaptation like this and Kodocha and Karikano. The anime is a lot sillier and goofier and less sincere. And I don't know why I like that more, but I do.
I do like the silliness and all the like. There's just so much comedy in Sailor Moon, the show. I just really have not that Takeuchi didn't have very funny stuff in some of her pages too, but yeah, I usually kind of preferred it to. Now, we are, dangerously close to the idea of like, this girl did a bad comic and men fixed it for her in a cartoon. It's like, no, I don't want to say that.
No, I like shoujo. I just bought the Blu-ray of Dear Brother from Discotheque, and I never buy physical media.
I got that in Grimm's Fairy Tale. I never watched any Dear Brother before, but I'd heard your wife mentioned it was very good.
We're going to watch it together.
But yeah, Takeuchi, even at the time, I think she was, under the extreme pressure of the deadlines of a weekly comic and actually tried to end the comic and kill off all the characters and was told, no, this series just came out. It's a huge hit. You can't do that. And so she kind of had to just restart everything, which led to the Sailor Moon R era that we're talking about here, because by 1993, when they started the second season of it, they basically had to do a 13-episode filler arc to be able to get ahead of the comic again and start adapting that. So weirdly enough, in both cases, our guests or our patrons who picked this, they picked ones from the filler arc. So this has no comic counterpart storyline. This is one all made up by the anime creator. So, and this is episode 10 of that 13-episode arc.
If you're on Hulu, this is episode 56.
Yes.
Just if you're watching it on Hulu.
Yeah, and look, I'm sure you can find the Deke dub. If you just Google Deke dub episode Mirror Mirror on the Wall, I bet you'll find it out there, guys. Just be sure to click all those pop-ups away. Let's just be careful. So, that's how big it is in Japan by 1994. Meanwhile, let's talk about the United States in 1994 for the big meat of this conversation. There's another Japanese import that just became gigantic, as big as Ninja Turtles and Batman before it, or The Simpsons, and that is Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. It was the big new hit on Fox Kids, brought over by Haim Saban and his company, and it did something that, TMNT with Toei paid for a bunch of original animation. Meanwhile, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers is like, no, we can just we'll film new live action stuff around it, but all the hard stuff already exists in Japan and we just dub over it.
Unfortunately, I was a little too old for Power Rangers, but I still watched it because I did enjoy the Japanese footage.
Oh, yeah.
And I did enjoy watching the Saved by the Bell antics, ironically. Like, this is stupid. I'm better than this and I'm 11.
Yeah, we all knew the Angel Grove stuff was corny, but we grew up with all of this anti-violence era of kids cartoons that just seeing the Power Rangers just kick each other and shit explode, that was exciting. Yeah, also with those cheaper production costs, and not to mention they didn't have to pay as many fair wages to actors in these things. It was much cheaper to make than, say, 65 episodes of Tiny Toon Adventures. And so Power Rangers was just this gigantic hit, and it had much more sophisticated localization techniques than in the 80s with Ultra 7 or Macross had. Plus, you can import ready-made toys and start selling them to Americans, or make your own toys from an incredibly toyetic show. And so, of course, everybody's looking for the next Power Rangers. And who wouldn't look at what's in Japan and see how big Sailor Moon is in Japan and say, oh, that's the next Power Rangers. We need that. So this next bit of Sailor Moon history, I have to credit to Kotaku reporter Cecilia D'Anastasio, who in 2018 revealed the secret history of Saban's, the company, attempt to bring Sailor Moon to America.
Speaking of Grimm's Fairy Tales.
Yes, yeah.
They're all over that.
With a wonderful song that was certainly written by Chaim Saban and Shuki Levy.
It's still in my head. It's a good
It
theme.
really is. Hey, come. You're going to make this into the Grimm's Fairy Tales podcast.
That's coming, by the way. We're going to do
for
that.
Sure. I want to do that so soon. Yeah. But okay. So in 1993, On Spec, an associate who worked executive level with Saban Entertainment, said, we can make a Sailor Moon thing. And behind the scenes, he said that Toei was very clear on, like, you can't hack this up like Power Rangers. We're not going to allow that. And so they then had the idea of, like, okay, then we can just get the concept from them and pay them for that. And they would have live action scenes of, the Sailor Moon girls hang out. And when they would transform, they would turn into animation, but cartoons drawn in America or via original cartoons for an American company, not any of the Toei footage. And so On Spec, at the estimated cost of like $200,000, they pay for about 10-minute pilot film about California teens having a Sailor Moon style adventure. 17-minute pilot, which has not been seen in full ever in public, though famously in the 90s, somebody got a hand on like a 2-minute sizzle reel of it and played it at a convention. And so there's like off-camera footage of that.
You can hear people reacting to it. It's very fun.
It's insane to like, but if you look at it from the Saban angle of it, it totally makes sense of like, yeah, this is how you make Sailor Moon. If you're not going to let us hack to bits your cartoon, then we'll just film that, which is what Saban had done a few years earlier with Samurai Pizza Cat. So I figured they thought they could do the same thing. So they make that pilot. They're ready to take it to Toy Fair and show it around. And that's when they find out that Toei not only said no, but also that they had been outbid by DiC Entertainment. And so, DiC was able to beat Saban. I could see that DiC was feeling Saban is breathing down their necks. Like, DiC was the big dog in the 80s, but now it's the 90s, and Saban, who I think they wrote some songs in the 80s for DiC shows, now they're taking over.
What is DiC now? Like Wild Brain?
No, it's Cookie Jar. Wild Brain got bought by Cookie Jar.
Okay.
Yeah.
These are all like online. Like a lot of their shows are just online under different monikers.
Yes, yeah. If they're not a licensed property, like I believe it's a Cookie Jar thing now for Inspector Gadget, But so yeah, in 1993, DiC was at 94. DiC was at a very interesting crossroads. We talked about this a lot in Sonic Saturday Morning and Street Sharks, but basically they were trying to find a way to exist in the new world of the 90s where Saban has kind of taken some of their stuff and they lost their big licenses like Nintendo and Ghostbusters. They couldn't do those anymore. But by late 94, early 95, they got a big investment of new capital from the same company that bought Cap City, the owner of the TV channel ABC, and nothing will go wrong from that. And so I think it was thanks to that new investment, they were able to outbid Saban on the Sailor Moon thing.
Wow.
So they really thought Sailor Moon was going to be the big thing for them. And so they got the rights to it early 95, late 94, at some point there. And that meant production had to go really fast. Like the dub had to be done in 3 months. So the plan would be to do what they do in classic syndication packages. They needed 65 episodes. And so they got 46 episodes from season 1. They skipped 5 episodes entirely and then took the last 2 episodes and shoved them together to make 1 episode of season 1. And then they took the first 26 episodes of season R, cutting 1 episode from that to get it to 65. Which, of course, that means that Sailor Moon R stops in the middle before the season is over. And so there's 17 episodes remaining that would not be seen in that first 65. So working with Toei, they pulled together a show Bible, rules for the characters, giving them their American names too. One of the sources I'll mention soon, they mentioned that like when they got the show Bible, it said, this is his character's name. Here's their blood type and star sign. And the producer was like, we just ignored those. That stuff doesn't mean anything to us. I don't care what their blood type is.
It's very important that Serena has type B.
And I couldn't find total confirmation on this, but there seems to be the accepted wisdom that at some point, Carl Macek was part of the localization team in the early season 1 Deke localization, but got replaced early on. Like that, it feeds into the narrative of like the rejection of the Masek style of localization from the Streamline and Robotech years.
One credit I will give them is that they did kind of keep the theme song, and not only that, but basically all the music is based on the theme song in the series.
Yes, yeah.
They recognize like, no, that theme song is good. It's very catchy.
I like that they stuck with the theme song, and there's the weirdest stuff is when they really respect the source material. There's other times where they don't, but in spirit, so much of it is there. But a big thing that had to be changed is it still was, it's the 90s. They got to shave off the Japanese edges to a lot of stuff. Usagi becomes Serena. Ami becomes Amy. Rei is just Rei. Makoto becomes Lita. Minako becomes Mina. Chibiusa, Rini. Mamoru becomes Darien. Naru becomes Molly. Umino becomes Melvin, the wonderful Melvin.
It's a classic weirdo character name, right?
Yes, yeah. And also I love Melvin is played like a character named Melvin. Like the guy.
Apologies to all Melvins out there, if there are any left.
I mean, the second they looked at him, I think the dubbers were like, this is the Screech of the show, right? I'll play him that way.
In fact, if your name is Melvin, let us know. I really want to know if we have at least one Melvin out there.
I feel like by the 80s, our parents' generation were like, everyone made fun of Melvins. I'm not naming our son Melvin.
That's why there are no Poindexters.
And, of course, references to meat buns became Meatball Head, not Odongo Head. Though a lot of the villain names stayed the same. Digital changes were made as well, such as, say, honestly, a big thing was the nude silhouette outlines.
Oh, yeah.
If you see them in Japanese, there is a clear line for, a breast, and that goes away. And same with, like, there's a famous scene early in the series where Usagi is in the bath thinking of something, and for Serena they change it to just make the water much more opaque so you can't even see any like outline of her body in the bath.
There's also a few like needless changes I noticed in this episode because I did watch both, and that some of the cuts are different in that there'll be like these cutesy cuts where you like go through a Luna mouth.
Yeah.
And they did not retain that for the dub version. It's like the Luna mouth opens, you go through the mouth, and there's the next scene.
That as a scene transition is so much better than the just like, here's the tiara and it comes at you sparkle. Like, yeah. Instead of being animated into the scene, they add all these like digital things that maybe did look impressive in 1994, or 95. And though, we watched the Deke version, they didn't remove as much Japanese text as you think. I think really they didn't have the tech for it. Kids in a couple years after this would have much better tech for removing Japanese
They
text.
tried to play God with that Dragon Ball Z localization.
Oh, yeah. I mean, also big cuts made to this would be any like references to death. They do that a lot. Also, if you're even knowledgeable about the BL, boys love genre of comics, it's very obvious early in the series that the villain pairing of Zoitzite and Kunzite, they are a top and bottom combo from one of those BL comics. So they get changed into a straight pairing where they just say the more feminine looking man of the pair is actually a woman, and they just voice it with a woman. And that's one of those things, I guess it's called the Streisand effect, but having that thing in there and changing the gender just made people look up online. Like I knew from reading Wizard Magazine, they'd make jokes of like, actually, this character's gay. Did you know that? It's not a girl. They're gay.
Only because it was shocking.
Yes, so shocking. A gay cartoon. And that would hardly be the end of gay characters in Sailor Moon, which, I mean, that attracted a much queerer audience in America than I think Deke expected when they licensed it.
Like, no, this is just for girls, straight women.
Yeah. And of course, when editing the episodes, they had to make a couple cuts to make space for commercials because in Japan, I believe the normal format is opening to the show, commercial, act 1, middle of the show, break for commercials, act 2, commercial, credits. But here, you got to do opening, act 1 commercial, act 2 commercial, act 3 commercial. So
yeah, like the typical 3-act structure of the 90s.
And the biggest cut in this episode is at the start of just like a silly little scene with Serena that I guess also had to be used to make room for the entirely fabricated PSAs at the end Sailor Moon says.
Hey, take that out of your mouth.
It's so cornball, those things. And it feels, even when we watched him in 95, I had the thought of like, we're still doing this? Animaniacs made fun of this like 2 years ago.
That's why they were such a hit later in the decade with those Fensler film parodies, the G.I. Joe ones, because it was like the immediately thing from your childhood. Like, what was the stupidest thing? Oh, yeah, that. Let's make fun of that.
I mean, because they're so earnest, too, that it's easy comedy.
And it's also them breaking the fourth wall to be like, I'm Sailor Moon, and I say, don't do this, kids.
Yeah.
That's my French-Canadian Sailor Moon.
Also, it's easy to make fun of, too, because especially in Sailor Moon's case, it's not original animation. It's just them hacking it together with cuts, too. So it's like, well, I can cut together my own Sailor Moon, and it looks as legitimate as this does.
Were those on Inspector Gadget and Heathcliff also Deke things?
Yes, yeah. They did have it. They definitely had it on Heathcliff. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, part of it was just to pretend your show was like educational or whatever. Like, no, this isn't a show about like killing a monster. Watch this episode. They kill a monster at the end. Like, no. It's about how you shouldn't cheat.
We learned the real monster was jealousy.
All right. So who dubbed this? For that very quick turnaround, Deke would go up to Canada, but not Vancouver like in so many of our
That's
things.
why this thing is rich with accents.
Yes, they instead of going to BC, they headed over to Ontario. At first, I always thought it was a Toronto-based operation, but actually it's based out of Mississauga. If I mispronounce that, apologies. Yeah, it's but yes, it is Optimum Productions, a production studio that, from looking it up, most of their previous productions were either commercials or they were a supporting production company on some Michael Jackson videos like Thriller. Like the making of Thriller, they were involved in the making of Thriller, video special. But the production used a lot of Toronto's finest actors, who a lot of whom, worked in commercial productions there, both for visiting American productions that filmed out of Toronto, or also the many Canadian original productions happening there. And also, when they recorded there, they used a trademarked version of a system they owned called Rhythmo Band as their own style of dubbing. Rhythmo Band, as it was described in the book by the series voice director Ronald Parliament, Rhythmo Band is very complicated because they have the episode in front of them. They see the lip flaps, and then the programmer, in kind of karaoke style, puts the text on screen, the localized script. They see the lip flaps, and so they color the words, and it's like, okay, when this shade comes up, that's when you say this syllable. That's when you say that. So I think they had a little leeway in that, but if something ever feels awkward in the show, part of it is thanks to the Rhythmo Brand karaoke style of direction. Never heard of Rhythmo Band in my life. It's very weird. In Parliament's book, every time he writes it, he puts a TM on it. It made me think like, oh, I guess they're very invested in that Rhythmo Band. And actors usually recorded alone with this system. And voices were added over time. So if you were the first person recording, you had it the hardest because you had nothing else to react to. And you're like, okay, gee, what a creepazoid. But if you were the last person, you could react to every other voice. And it made your performance usually much better. So when producing the show, the original voice of Serena was Tracy Moore, who was also the original voice director. And there are some vague creative differences mentioned about why she left. Some people say that Tracy Moore got pregnant and couldn't commit to the time on the show. Other people say that she wanted to do too many takes, and it's like, we got to get this out right now. Deke isn't paying for perfection here. And so Ronald Parliament, who wrote the book on this, it's only $1 on Amazon Kindle if you want to read it. He was the voice of Melvin, and he had also directed a bunch of commercials with Optimum in Toronto. And so they're like, you can be voice director. You can get this thing out fast. And so he took over as voice director, and actress Terry Hawks took over Serena, and she'd be her voice for the rest of the Deke dubs, the remaining 65 episodes. Though in both cases, either Tracy Moore or Terry Hawks, not that Serena, they don't play her as kind of a crybaby, but she's much more of a valley girl. This
is a weird accent. I'm not saying it's bad. It feels like a French Canadian trying to do a valley girl, and it's just like the two accents battling for supremacy.
Oh, gee, guys, I don't know. Yeah, there's.
I am Sailor Moon.
But that's part of the charm, though, too, that weirdness of it. And the main producer at Optimum with Parliament was Nicole Thault. who worked on a lot of the dubs at Parliament. Sadly, she passed away in 2016. And in his book, which if you're a hardcore lover of the dub and want to hear about like the audition process for all the women who played the main roles, it's pretty informative. And he mentions that just like, yeah, he knew his job was Deke needs this now, and we got to just record. Like, we can't do 5 takes to every line. We just got to do it and do it fast, which he said was extra funny because now they just saw it as like, you know, a 3-month project, and he still is appearing at conventions, at anime conventions, like, yep, that's me. I'm Melvin.
That's how you have to do it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, he's upfront in the book of saying, yeah, you know what? I think it is pretty fucked up that because of the laws in Canada, we signed away our rights and we get no residuals or reuse fees. He blamed the union for not protecting.
Cons are the safety net. In 30 years, you can meet Bob and Henry at PodCon.
I can't wait. I'll sign everything. I'll be like, oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah. Also, Parliament in his book says that they got calls from their U.S. producers saying, like, this is for fucking America. It sounds like Canada. And
well, you're paying for Canadians.
Yeah, Parliament says he tried his best with it, but Canadian pronunciation it's like, you know, on one hand, you can say, we tried really hard to not make him sound Canadian. And on the other hand, you say, we were producing this as fast as we could. And so I was like, well, then you're going to have some Canadians like, did you do this? Did you that?
Sorry. There's a sorry. I mean,
So
it's not
many
all of
sorries.
Canada that talks like that, but where
No.
most things are done, people talk like that.
You know, now I think I've listened to enough dubs that I can hear them in this and be like, oh, yeah, this is Toronto, not Vancouver Canadian accents here.
I'm married to somebody who lives in Vancouver and from British Columbia, and they don't have the accent, although she does say pasta and manga.
A little more of it leaks in than you'd expect, but Toronto is a little heavier, I think. Yeah, I've never been to either place. I'm talking bullshit here. But, okay, so another reason he said that they went with Canada, not just because of no residual fees they'd have to pay, but also at the time, the exchange rate was 60 cents to the Canadian dollar, so if your budget goes a lot farther with Canadian actors back then, at least. So, yes, they worked really hard to get it out. He had a lot of fun acting with Melvin, but to him, it was just like, it was a 3-month job, and then it was over, and he went back to working in, like, you know, community theater. His book has almost as much about how much he loved his like being in a band that toured around Toronto that he worked on Sailor Moon. But there's some interesting stories in there about like, you know, the women who worked on the show are like Sailor Jupiter's voice actress says, I really wanted to be Sailor Moon, but then when I learned about Jupiter's background, I was like, oh, that's more for me. I'm that kind of like tough girl with a raspy voice. I like that. And so that was the dub side of it. The Deke version would debut in U.S. syndication in the fall of 1995, assisted by distribution partner Seagull Entertainment. It would even premiere on Fox Kids Saturday, which is how I watched it, which I still think was really just paid advertisement. That like Deke paid Fox a bunch of money to air it at like 11 o'clock once.
Oh.
And so people would then watch it in syndication.
Now try to find it.
Yeah. Check your local listings, kids. Sailor Moon says.
It was like, paid advertisements. That should have been running across the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, it should. I mean, that's what Deke, that's how Deke would have done it in the 80s, you know. Deke thought in a lot of ways they'd get a lot more airtime than they did. They really did not. They planned this whole kind of Barbie-style toy line, too, an American original toy line, and it was just not moving. They were also disappointed to see that like this is attracting older fans because it's anime and action. It wasn't attracting kids. It did not have a big crossover. And apparently a big thing that hurt him too was in syndication packages by the late 90s for kids stuff, most of the prime time after school was taken by blocks, specifically the either the Disney Afternoon block or the Bobot Entertainment Action block. And so when your local syndicators are buying a 3-hour block of shit, then there's no time for Sailor Moon in there. And so if anybody's going to get Sailor Moon, it goes to the wee hours in the morning when basically nobody can watch it.
Yeah, that's where I saw Dragon Ball, not Dragon Ball Z, but Dragon Ball once when I like woke up with a fever at 5 a.m.
It feels like a fever dream seeing that. Also, another thing that hurt them in the U.S. was apparently an early advertiser was Bandai. Bandai thought that they were going to get it because they made the toys in Japan. Bandai apparently thought they were going to get a good deal on it, and they found out they got a really shitty deal on it. And so halfway through the season, or at some point during the first airing syndication, Bandai pulled out. So they lost a bunch of money, and it was not popular with advertisers. They were having to do a bit of make good. So DiC was losing money on this. Though apparently it did way better in its YTV airings all over Canada. I think in part because it got to skirt by those Canadian content laws, because it was technically Canadian content.
YTV, the youth channel.
Yes, the youth channel. YTV is an underrated component to why these shows continue. We talked about that on Reboot as well. Like, as an American, we've never watched YTV. We just think of it as like, no, it's like Cartoon Network in Canada, right? Like,
although I have been learning more about Much Music.
Oh, yeah, I watched a ton of Ed the Sock for the brief year or two when Much Music started airing on American cable. When we talked to Toronto-based pals of ours, Luke Savage and Will Sloan, they were shocked that we knew who Ed the Sock was. They're like, what? How Americans should know who Ed the Sock is.
Should not have crossed the border.
You're worse for knowing about him. But yes, and ultimately that Canadian localization and popularity on YTV would help sustain Sailor Moon in its darkest hour. So after the first year of airing in syndication, it was a big old washout for DiC. And they're like, all right, didn't work. See you later. Also, by 1996, DiC had been bought by Disney as part of when Disney bought ABC. So I don't think DiC gave a shit about Sailor Moon at that point. They're like, we're bought by Disney. Our main job now is to make an Inspector Gadget movie for Disney. And so it had been mainly airing on UPN networks across America, and UPN was just, they were done with it. But thanks to that burgeoning new technology called the internet in 1996, there was a collective of American Sailor Moon fans and Canadian ones who really didn't want the show to go away.
When I was on the internet back then, after I seen Sailor Moon once and not knowing what happened to it, I would see SOS, Save Our Sailors.
That's
and I was like, what happened to them?
Yes, yeah. The SOS, Save Our Sailors initiative online was a big deal. Partially because they ended on a cliffhanger. They didn't complete the R season, so people knew they were missing stuff.
Just like Dragon Ball.
Yep.
Never finished the Frieza fight with that original syndicated order.
And that want and need of people who did get hooked into it. And it also did help the, burgeoning fan sub community. Fan subs weren't just for, the biggest of losers anymore. It was for hardcore kids who wanted to see this series completed. I mean, the first fan sub I bought was because I wanted to see the end of Evangelion. And it was very similar for these people who were like, I want to see uncut Sailor Moon, or I want to see the rest of R, or I've heard about these lesbians in the next season. I want to see those girls, I
think the first ones I bought were for Dragon Ball Z, the Buu saga, where I felt like, well, we'll never see this. This is like, I'm not even going to see the end of Frieza, but I want to know what happened in 1994 in the show.
Little did you know, a decade later, you'd finally see it. And so, yes, the Save Our Sailors was the main collective of fans. There was, though, a funny thing that some online fans didn't like them because they thought that they were dub preferers. It was part of the subs versus dub thing. And I go, you guys like DiC and how they chopped up the show, when really Save Our Sailors' stance was, the only way this is going to air on American TV is dubbed and cut up. Let us just go for this, and hopefully it'll help expand it.
Maybe I'm wrong, but I thought the first time we saw the original version was in 2014, officially, with the Hulu release.
You could buy DVDs from ADV that were uncut for a very
ADV.
brief amount of time in 2002. You could buy it, but otherwise, pretty much fully uncut, and especially streaming, that wasn't until 2015. Yeah, it was held back for a very long time. But yeah, so Save Our Sailors was a very committed group of online fans. They did, very savvy letter writing campaigns to syndication networks saying like, no, seriously, give Sailor Moon another chance. I pulled up one of their old, 1997 web pages, and it explains shit that so many people still don't understand to this day of, the business of it. Like, here's how a syndication business works. Here's how ad works. Here's how the licensors work. It was all of these quick answers to people who said, but why don't they just put it back on TV?
Before streaming.
Yeah. And also a big thing the Sailor Moon fans did at SOS was they did a reverse boycott. They saw that Pop-Tarts had apparently aired on Sailor Moon at some point, and they said, we'll all buy cherry Pop-Tarts. When they see there's a giant spike in cherry Pop-Tart sales, they'll see the buying power of the Sailor Moon fans. That was in that Anime News Network article I'd read, saying the woman, Lindsay, explaining, like, I was such a fan, I bought a bunch of cherry Pop-Tarts for this thing.
Huh. So they just mentioned it in the show just like as an offhanded remark?
I think
it wasn't like product placement, was it?
No, I think it was like Kellogg was one of their advertisers on Sailor Moon, and they're like, oh, the cherry Pop-Tarts, that kind of feels like Sailor Moon. I believe that's why they chose it specifically. And so their actions actually kind of worked or helped move it along. One of the channels they targeted to say, like, please air Sailor Moon was the USA Network. We covered this a lot in our Savage Dragon podcast, but you may remember they had the USA Action Extreme Team block, and Sailor Moon was the perfect fit of a 5-day-a-week cartoon action series.
What did we cover in that Action Extreme block? Savage Dragon?
Just Savage Dragon.
Okay.
That we haven't done Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, or Double Dragon. Haven't covered those yet. But Sailor Moon, I mean, from USA standpoint, they're like, well, this is an action-y kind of show with an anime style to it, and there's 65 episodes of it. So they get it, and they're going to air it 4 days a week all through 1997. Unfortunately, as we had talked about in that Savage Dragon podcast, USA Network at the start of 1998 was like, no more kid stuff. Go away. It's not for us. Meanwhile, at the same time, it was really doing good on YTV. It was actually quite successful to the point that DiC actually, thanks in part to its popularity on Canadian TV, DiC decided that with Optimum, they'd hire them back and they would localize those remaining 17 episodes of R, which would be called the Lost Episodes, and they would first air on YTV. I don't think they were starting to see that they could sell, tapes of it at the time, but at the very least, they saw that it was worth a try to localize 17 more episodes and see if that did well enough that they would then license the next season. But so if the USA Network in America is done with it, where's a cartoon to go? Well, that's where Toonami comes in. So if you look at the history of Toonami, by 97, they'd already had a lot of success with anime tie-ins, first with Voltron, which premiered with the block, and then Robotech. Robotech did so well for them. So they were like, you know what, why don't we try a relatively newer show? And in the history of things, Sailor Moon debuted on Toonami June 2nd, 1998, 2 months before Dragon Ball Z.
I didn't realize it was before Dragon Ball Z.
I was surprised too. I think of them as like premiering at the same time or as DBZ first, but Sailor Moon was 2 months before it. And Toonami really knew how to market it because unlike DiC's problem in Saturday morning or other morning stuff, which was we need this to go to 12-year-old girls, Toonami was all about the boys market, and they knew how to market Sailor Moon to their action-friendly fan base. It got huge ratings. Until DBZ appeared 2 months later, Sailor Moon was the #1 ratings draw on Toonami. And a big draw for the show was also, they said, that winter, we've got brand new lost episodes of Sailor Moon to finish out the season. Like, those new episodes brought in so many new viewers. Like, Sailor Moon, giant hit in 1998 for Toonami.
Now, this is very stupid, but I looked it up because I had to know. And the this famous Bare Naked Lady song, 1 Week, came out in 1998. So before Sailor Moon was a hit on Toonami, they were singing about how he made him think the wrong things.
Man, I thank you for looking that up. I don't know how I forgot that in the history of Sailor Moon in North America. That those guys are Canucks too. That's why that shows you the crossover.
That makes sense because it was a hit on YTV first. Okay, I get it. And when I heard that song on the radio a ton, I was like, I know what Sailor Moon is.
Yeah, I'm smart enough to know that. Yeah. And so, yes, those brand new lost episodes in 1998 did so well that it would only be a matter of time before the next season would come stateside. But that matter of time would be about 18 months. It would be March 2000, because in the meantime, when all that was happening and Sailor Moon finally succeeded, Toei ended its licensing with DiC. And so Toei's like, well, we kind of sort of own this company named Cloverway, and we're going to work with them. And also, we're going to work with Sony and their Pioneer label and put it out in America that way. But that's a localization tale for another day. So that is the history in North America of Sailor Moon as we know it, and all of the wonderful, very Canadian voice actors of its time. So why don't we take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the Sailor Moon R episode / just Sailor Moon episode, Mirror, Mirror on the Wall.
Sailor Moon will be right back.
We've got to help Sailor Moon find the Rainbow Crystal, and she can save the Earth from the evil Queen Beryl and her henchmen. Nasty. Look, Sailor Moon transforms with Moon Prism power. Let's get going, Sailor Moon. The Sailor Scouts will help. Sailor Venus, Sailor Mars, Sailor Mercury, Sailor Jupiter. We'll protect the Earth. Bye-bye, Queen Beryl. Yay! Sailor Moon and the Sailor Scouts from Banzai.
Hey, it's Henry Gilbert fighting evil by daylight in this break.
Hey everybody, it's Bob Mackey. I'm wearing a full animal costume right now.
And welcome to the break for this week's return to Sailor Moon R as we dive into the dub. And this was chosen by premium patron Alex. This was a great pick by them. Another of their great picks. And you know, we would be nowhere without supporters like Alex at Patreon at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons.
That's true. If you want to be cool like Alex and get all these episodes 1 week ahead of time and ad-free and support this network, please go to patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons. Sign up for $5 a month. You get just that, but also access to everything behind the $5 paywall. That includes over 100 bonus podcasts that you probably haven't heard yet, which includes all of our limited miniseries. The most recent one was Talking of the Hill, Season 2, Part 1. That was 11 new episodes of Talking of the Hill, our King of the Hill retrospective series, and we have another miniseries coming up in the fall of 2021. And also, we have a $10 level on top of that. If you sign up for that, you get all the $5 stuff as well, but also access to one mega-long podcast once a month, only for patrons of that level or higher. And what is that, Henry?
Bob is talking about the What a Cartoon Movie podcast. Now, if you're on the free feed, I'm sure you've seen it, where we have a preview of each month, the awesome movie conversation we talk about, going deep into the history of a feature film. But if you sign up at that $10 level, on top of all the $5 things Bob just mentioned, you get to hear the full What a Cartoon Movie podcast, often over 4 hours long, of us talking about a classic or infamous animated feature film. This month, you'll be hearing real soon us talking about 1997's Hercules from Disney, the start of our Disney Renaissance summer, which will be followed up by The Hunchback of Notre Dame next month. And in the back catalog, you'll see things in varying quality as Cool World and Shrek, and Akira, and a Goofy movie with a ton in between. So many, almost 3 years worth, over 120 hours of exclusive What a Cartoon Movie podcasts, in addition to everything else that offered there. You really get bang for your buck for that $10 a month at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons.
And if you've never signed up for Patreon before, it's so easy to do. And once you sign up, you're given a code. You can drop that code into whatever you use to listen to podcasts. And that way you can listen to all of our bonus podcasts alongside your free podcasts as part of your podcasting lifestyle. And there is also a Patreon app for any smart device you might have. But either way you do it, it is so easy to access all of the bonus content waiting for you at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons.
And so, in the name of the moon, we'll end this break and head back to our talk about Mirror, Mirror on the Wall.
Ready to be punished in the name of the moon.
That means you! We gotta bust some bad guys!
Every weekday at 4, Sailor Moon and the Scouts take girl power to a whole new level.
I'm gonna whip your foot!
Sailor Moon, weekdays at 4.
We are the champions of justice!
Only Konami will you win.
And now, more Sailor Moon.
Today on Sailor Moon, Anne sets her sights on the lead in Darian's new play, but Anne's not exactly Snow White, and Alan's no Prince Charming. When he sends a monster from the Negaverse to bring down the curtains, it's up to the Sailor Scouts to save the show. You just stay right there, and I'll show you.
Okay, we are back from the break, and how does everybody still love hearing the original adapted into English version of Moonlight Legend?
I do like it. Of course, the singing on the original is better, but instead of having the bridge, they do play the music from the bridge, but instead of having the singing, it's just like Sailor Mars, Sailor Mercury.
Oh, yeah,
It's like the Sailor roll call. Crow.
I guess that does follow the more American style of, like, you know, you have the breakdown in the Ninja Turtles to say, here's the name of each turtle, or in the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers one, you just have the break of like, this is every Power Ranger, you know, it's not about you having a little chorus about like, she has a hard time and she does this stuff and that. It was still mind-blowing to me the first time I did karaoke with a friend who did the Japanese version of the song. I had never heard it before, and when it played, I was like, I was just so used to like, well, I knew Pokemon had a different American and Japanese opening, and so many other shows, Dragon Ball. I just figured that Sailor Moon had the same thing, and when it wasn't. But then when I tried to sing along with her with the English language lyrics that I knew, she was like, no, I don't want to hear that. I want to sing the Japanese version.
I didn't know this was the same opening until the Hulu thing came around. I'm like, what, the same thing? Wow, no wonder it was so good.
And you and I have joked about it many times, but what a line, like, she is the one on whom we can depend.
Yeah, depends.
Yeah.
I love it every time.
The idea of, like, the one on whom as well. Like
it's the most passive sentence construction ever.
And the adaptation is alternatively credited to Nicole and Bryn Price or Monroe Michaels. When it has been officially released on like anime soundtracks in America on CD, the lyric crediting has been either Nicole and Bryn Price or Monroe Michaels, but not both together. So that's the best I could find there. I also, you know, at first I thought it was a very like weird retro construction of having an opening where Sailor Moon's like, don't touch that dial, kids. This is going to be fun. Watch it. But then when you watch the Japanese version, it's like, nope, that was there too.
I miss all of I don't really miss them, but I think they're cute. All of these anime shortcuts they used to take where they really can't get away with them today. Sometimes it'll be a recap, but often it'll be like, guess what we're doing today? Yeah. Here's some clips from today's episode. So I think that was like right before the commercial in Japan to be like, don't go anywhere.
Yeah, don't go
This
anywhere.
Stuff is going to happen, we swear. Up front, this is the promise.
And it technically counts as a minute of content. So, I mean, multiple times watching this episode, I was just thinking like, these are very tired animators who they got to pump out the footage. And in top of that, they had to write this story as well originally.
I feel like it's maybe 17 minutes of original animation per episode, which is fine.
Yeah, I think
it's still very hard to do.
You know, that's what Rocky and Bullwinkle had too, and they did it fine. Yeah, the animation kind of hacked together. It's that countdown. Some of it's like the original OP animation of like her running towards Tuxedo Mask or the three girls together, all that. But then sometimes it just cuts to like scenes from the episode, especially when like she'd never turn her back on a friend, and then it's just a scene from the first episode of her going to save Molly. And I'm going to be using the Deke dub names here, guys, okay? But in most cases, like I'm not going to say Ray did that. I'm going to say Mars did that, or I'll refer to them by their Sailor Scout name. The opening, too, it kind of shifts between the original opening of the 3 Sailor Scouts and then the second opening of having the 5 Sailor Scouts. When I did watch the show for the first time as a youngster, I kept waiting for I thought this was a show about 5 Sailor Scouts. It really takes a while to get all 5, you know. In Power Rangers, it's like, hey, the 5 of us, we're 5 friends, and now we're the Power Rangers.
And then there's a green one.
Yeah, the green
shows up.
Also, the opening cut together in the English version has a gigantic spoiler of all of them beating Queen Beryl together. but it is a very cool action shot. I guess if you're looking for action shots to tell boys not to be scared that it's all makeup and girl talk.
And finding love?
And finding love, yeah. And I'm not going to note every change in the show, but it was a very funny little opening scene with Usagi like falling asleep at her comic books. I like that scene that got cut.
And all the Luna jokes.
Yeah, that Luna is like this. She's like, I'm a cat, but I'm also a woman and I need love. I dream of my first kiss. Like
from a cat boy.
Yes, she had to make sure to let you know, and it wouldn't just be a cat, but a boy cat. I would kiss a boy cat. Boys kiss girls, Lisa. No, but I like that. As a funny joke of Luna thinking that Usagi is dreaming about kissing a boy, that she's like, I was dreaming of eating a big steamed pork bun, which, I can go for that.
That's why Usagi's the best.
Yeah.
She likes video games and eating and sleeping and not doing her homework.
I love that all the other girls in the show are mostly like the good girl in other shows, and here the main character is the one who's like, but I wanted to do that, man.
You know what? I thought that it was an original idea. I'm not saying it's unoriginal, but Nina, who has obviously read a lot more, Japanese-only manga and seen a lot of, Japanese-only TV shows, told me that is kind of a trope of the bratty lead character. But we only got a few shows like that.
All right. Well, yeah, that's why it feels so fresh.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's good to know. I should have figured it's a regular trope.
But with any American show, it'd be like, if it starred a girl, it'd be like the most bland, generic, like inoffensive girl. And like the bad girl, the Reggie of the group would be the jerk.
Yeah, exactly. Like on Josie and the Pussycats.
Yeah.
Josie is such a boring character compared to the mean girl, Val. No, not Val. The skunk streak hair girl. She's much more interesting. But yeah, this that whole bit gets cut out there. We then start with Ale and Ann, or Alan and Ann, I guess I should say in the dub. I think it's funnier that their names are alien. That's funny.
Oh, that's right. We went over that last time.
Yes,
It was like, I get it.
But it starts with Anne reading a English textbook, which is that's not changed. That's from the Japanese version too.
They lucked out.
Yeah, I mean people read English text fairy tales there, and so Anne and Ale, they have competing plans.
I don't think reading silly old fairy tales is useful. It's a big waste of time. We need to be thinking of ways to steal energy instead. Ugh.
So that's how people fall in love. The prince just kissed the sleeping princess and poof, he's in love. Well, if that's all it takes to fall in love, look out, Darian, my lips and I are coming after you.
I wrote that down because it's like this dub actress had a lot of fun with that.
Oh yeah, I had to look. I'm not going to name every actor, but Sabrina Gridovich, she plays Anne, and she is so fun in this. I love her, very slangy way of talking, coming after you. That's such a silly. That's what the alien talks like. In Japanese, I think Anne is played much more like spacey, kind of like she's she feels like she's from outer space. Instead, here she's just like, oh man, rassafras. Like she's such a silly character.
They need to have their eyes on the prize with this energy stealing plan.
Yeah, Alan, the tree isn't going to fill itself up. Alan is mostly focused here. Though then I guess we find out he's
I wanted love.
Yeah. Another change made in the Deke dub is that Anne and Alan, they're both from the Negaverse, which, makes more sense from a fluidity of the story in the full localized version than just saying after she fought Queen Beryl in the Negaverse, then 2 random aliens just showed up on Earth with a tree and started sucking out the life force.
Time-killing tree.
Yes. We have to wait 13 whole weeks, and then it'll be done. I definitely think people could complain about how every girl in this episode is written as a boy crazy jerk. But I will praise it from an American standpoint. You weren't used to seeing girls in 90s stuff actually have like agency or interest in boys, like being boy crazy even.
It's the episode is sexist in a kind of silly way, but it also is recognizing the sexuality of, young girls.
Yeah.
And like their desire.
Because in so many like American productions around this time, like let's just say, all the girls in Saved by the Bell, they weren't really people. They were prizes to be won.
Exactly.
And love interests. Like maybe Jessie had a bit of humanity to her, but like Tiffany Amber Thiessen's character like had nothing. Like she's kind of just nothing. Jessie Spano at least had she was like a women's lib character, so she got to be hot and complain.
She was the sexist. She was another sexist character in that she got to be proven wrong.
Yes,
maybe I was a little pushy. You're right. You're right, Slater.
Maybe I shouldn't have cared about the environment so much. Maybe when I called you a pig, Slater, I actually was attracted to you, as all girls are. Yeah, no, I was thinking of this in comparison to, say, Roxanne in a Goofy movie. At first she is built up to be, the crush of the boy and a prize to be won. But if you watch her character, Roxanne is actually, she is attracted to Max as well. And she does kind of have her own life and want and needs, though we don't see a ton of it. But here, yes, all the girls are... If they're not all boy crazy for Darien, then they're all competing for one thing. And it's also that women can't cooperate either. Right? It's kind of the message here.
They just can't be friends.
So yes, in the original Japanese version, the next scene begins with Usagi being told she's really late. But here it's just Serena misunderstands something because she's a dumb ditz.
What did you say? Darien's had a tragedy? Oh no! Huh? What happened? Is he okay? Get a grip, Serena.
You've got it all wrong. Darien's organized a play, a Shakespeare tragedy at the Little Theater.
What? A play?
Yeah. Actually, one of his friends started the whole thing, got a bunch of people involved, including Darien. Then the guy quit, leaving the whole thing on Darien.
Yeah, then the rest of the cast members all started to fight each other, and they all quit too.
Now he needs a whole new cast and a brand new play. I found this copy of Snow White. What do you think?
Oh, wicked idea, Ray. I love Snow White.
Now that's an
wicked idea.
Yes, yeah. I got to give them compliments to the localization that they took a very specifically Japanese cultural detail, which was Ray learned about in the Japanese version. Ray learns that Mamoru wants to get his play fixed because he wrote one of those, prayer boards that was left at her family's shrine. And so in the scene, it's Mars handing Sailor Moon the prayer board that says he wants this, and she's like, oh, that's what he wants. Here, instead, when she hands her a thing, she says oh, I found a copy of Snow White. Oh, okay,
that's what that is.
Oh, yeah.
Well, later they have a character at a shrine ringing the bell and clapping their hands, and they don't explain what's happening here.
Yeah,
she was praying to Jesus Christ
with a special Christian bells. Yeah. We all know. Yeah, it's interesting how they just kind of don't touch it. They're she just wants something. That's all. I really love that reaction drawing of Ray to Serena, the way she's just get a grip, her wacky ass face and her giant bead of sweat. So funny.
Yeah, I mean, it's because it's what I cut my teeth on, but I do love the style of 90s anime in that if a drawing indicates it's the character, then it's fine. They can kind of move and transform depending on what the scene requires of them.
Oh, so many of those wacky reaction shots. I just love every single one of them. It's something I noticed within the fandom of Steven Universe. Apparently you'd see people say look at how wacky they drew Pearl for this scene. And I just thought this, this isn't half the time. It's not half as crazy as how they drew a reaction shot of any Sailor Moon character.
That's true. And people that are weirded out by in-betweens, they drew this Homer weird. It's just no, that's a drawing between another drawing that you're not supposed to freeze on.
Blinked, yeah. A quick aside about Snow White with regards to anime. I've seen this from several American anime historians, but many of them point to the release of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs in Japan as being very influential to the burgeoning anime industry in Japan. So Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, for obvious reasons, didn't come out in Japan until 1950. When it was released in 1950, as the publishing world was, there was already this big comic boom in Japan. in addition to that, getting animated films like Snow White, also Bambi, and several others, Pinocchio, those were very influential to the people who would start animation companies in the 50s in Japan, including Osamu Tezuka was very open about his influence from it.
And as of this recording in June, Snow White is in the news. Do you know about this? Have you heard about this?
No, I haven't.
Because Disneyland opened again, and Snow White's Scary Adventure is now Snow White's Enchanted Wish. And people are starting to be like, that kiss is kind of weird, isn't it?
Oh,
people are starting to ask questions about the kissing a comatose woman, which is a joke they made in Shrek, of course.
Yes.
But now they're like, my kid's asking me questions about this, and I'm starting to rethink this whole kissing a comatose woman thing.
Oh man, that's tough. I mean, that's how every generation interacts with these ancient fables in different ways. That's so funny, though, that now. I think after we've had all this time and now that kids are actually writing Snow White again, they can actually think like, well, that's not really consent, is it? Like, and that's such an important part of this episode as well. Though part of that too is just the idea of like, how can I kiss a boy I like without having to actually, like, you know, express my feelings directly? What's a nice shortcut to that?
It's like I guess the idea is that she is so chaste that she won't even lean into the kiss. You have to like kiss her just prone body.
Yeah, it's. I mean, look, it is weird, but I remember reading like a Neil Gaiman short story called Snow, Glass, and Apples that was, you know, in the early 90s, a story of, oh, isn't this kind of twisted look at Snow White? And they cast Prince Charming in that as a guy who can really only get it up for a frozen dead woman. And that's why he kissed her. He thought he was getting a dead body, not actually a princess.
I'm just happy I got to ride Scary Adventures before it closed down.
I never rode it. I missed out on the old one.
You missed out. It's no longer scary.
But yeah, and also I think that, you know, the influence of European fairy tales first through that the popularity of the Disney versions coming out in Japan post-war. I do think that's why so many of like the big anime productions from about, you know, the 50s into the 80s were adaptations of European fairy tales or stories, you know, not even famous ones to Americans.
Yeah.
Like that Grimm's Fairy Tales that just came out that's on our mind because it just got re-released in the US. It's like half of it is stuff no kid ever heard of before because Disney never made them. And for Americans anyway, like the one about the donkey that ate all the cabbage and gets cursed.
When I was a kid, I had not seen a lot of the Disney movies, but that gave me the idea that, wait a minute, how come these dwarves aren't named the things I know? And Disney probably didn't want me to know that. Disney wanted me to think, like, no, we made that story.
It's a Disney original. Yeah, I think that's why they've moved away from so many of those and get everybody a specific name, because it's like, well, they learned anybody can make a Peter Pan or anybody can make a Snow White, but nobody can make a Moana or a Princess Elsa.
We need to buy Winnie the Pooh. What's he asking?
Yeah, we'll pay whatever to the children of the children of the children of A. Milne. So yes, they then head over to Darien and present him with the idea of Snow White. I have to remind myself that Serena's 15 and Darien is 17, which is, an appropriate enough age gap, I suppose. Mm-hmm. But the way
when I was a 17, I had a 15-year-old girlfriend.
But the way they're drawn, Darien looks like an adult man and Serena looks like a middle schooler.
I'm also more than a foot taller than my wife, so it happens.
Hey, all right, it happens. That's true.
Henry's trying to cancel me on this podcast.
No, I'm just saying that the visual look of it is...
There's a visual disparity, but it's also like wish fulfillment if you're like a young girl, like, oh, what if a tall, strapping man was my boyfriend?
Sure. I also really laughed at the Canadian way that Darien starts the scene of like, did you think you want to be in my play? He talks, the Darien voice actor is very
He doesn't ever tell anyone to take off.
Yeah, I wish he'd, hey buddy. Yes, but the kids all start to argue over who gets to be Snow White.
Well, what do you think, Serena? Do you think you want to be in my play?
I sure do. I think it'd be a major blast. And Ray thought maybe we should do Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
Snow White, huh?
That's right, Darien. And since I'm the one who came up with the idea, I should get to play the part of Snow White.
Oh, come on. You'd make a better dwarf. Besides, I'm the fairest one of all, so I should get to play Snow White.
Well, I think I should play Snow White. I mean, after all, it's obvious I clearly have the most acting experience and talent around here.
Hold on.
on a second. I think I'm the one who should play Snow White because I have the best stage presence here. And I'm the most graceful.
Since I'm so busy with computer schoolwork and science club, I think I should be Snow White. After all, I wouldn't have to memorize many lines since she's asleep for half the play.
Mercury has me most sold on hers. It's like, you know what? Yeah, give her. She works so hard for you guys. Like, let her take it easy this week.
I was listening to the background music, like really for the first time, concentrating on it, and because it's all kind of based on the opening theme, every song in the background is just a sort of a tango, some version of a tango.
That's so fun. That's funny, and yeah, I never noticed that. But here was a big change here.
Oh, yeah.
So, I think it is a very male writing staff thing, but I've seen it in many anime. I mean, I don't know. I've never been a young girl. I've never had envy about breast size, but I feel like it's especially in very male anime of jokes about girls jealous of other girls having bigger boobs than them, and then the girl with the bigger boobs kind of flaunts it and be like, hey, look at how big my boobs are. Like it.
That was the original line when she's like, I have the best acting ability. She puffs out her chest. That was her saying, I have the biggest boobs, so I should get to be Snow White, which Snow White is not known for her breast size.
Yeah, I don't think so.
And your breasts kind of like flatten out when you lay down.
Yeah, it's also weird that she's like, who wants to measure up? So she also is like challenging them to a boob measuring contest too, which, I mean, like, Bob, say you're the casting director now. Which one do you cast in it?
I would choose, God, I'm sorry, what's her name? Blue hair.
Mercury? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
Because you don't need to say anything to be Snow White. So save the other roles for the other girls who don't have cram school.
Her hair is the closest to Disney Snow White as well. I feel the worst for her, so I'm like, yeah, it should be her. Let it be her. This is from the fan wiki about that line with the boob change that apparently in early Sailor Moon fandom, they all knew that she was talking about her chest size, and that internally, as a joke within like the message boards and stuff, they would use the term talent to refer to breasts. Say like, oh, look at that character's big talent.
Well, they cut like the boob jiggle out of the dub, but you can see her like puffing at her chest and like kind of advancing on the girl. So when I watched for the first time, I was like, I know what this really was to begin with.
Oh, and she shoves her way back into the screen. There's no way to cut around that. When Mars is saying it should be me, and then breast first, Jupiter enters the scene of saying like, I have the most talent,
and people are blushing.
Yes, yeah. Also, in the dub, I thought it was pretty funny and advanced that Darien was going for gender-neutral casting. He's like, well, one of you could be the prince, and that's when Venus goes like, no offense, Darien, but I'm pretty sure you're Prince Charming. Like, you got that.
Japan did have a lot of, there's like a genre of play where it's all female.
Yeah, Darien honestly should have just held back and been like, you know what? Jupiter, you will be Snow White, and Amy, you're Mercury, you're Prince Charming. Let's go that way. I like those two as a pair, Jupiter and Mercury. I'd ship them together. Anyway, though, they're still fighting over it. Even Melvin and Molly are in the background like, guys, come on. And that is also where I like that Darien says, this was just like before. It was either everybody had to be Hamlet or no one. I think it helps undercut the women are crazy and jealous moment of him saying, you know what, a bunch of boys fought over Hamlet, so it's not just women who do that.
No mention of Hamlet in the original.
No. They seem to just say all the boys wanted to do this, but just be the lead in it. And then in comes Anne. And she has found a way to fix it. I really love in the dub, she says, we should draw straws. I don't usually have straws with me, though, so I have these strings that I colored.
Clearly a demon.
Yes, yeah.
Come on, everybody. Look at her eyes.
I think, too, that is more of I've seen multiple anime that use this moment of the trick, the pretend draw straws, and one tears it off. The tricker does that, like, in Urusei Yatsura, there's a very funny moment of that, of Ataru Moroboshi, the main character, tricking a guy with that and pretending like, oh, I tore off the whole thing. Everyone is a failure. And it's like, well, the one with the red tab, but the secret is everyone has a red tab. And so then you just tear it off in your hand and be like, oh, guess I got the winning one.
So are they like little pieces like tissue or something like that?
I think in this case it's tissue she tied up into strings and then put color on
because
the end.
In Japan you carry around your own tissues.
Oh, that totally makes sense. Yeah, okay. But yes, the Snow White role is decided in this next clip.
Drag, Serena, but at least you're not a dwarf.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Me playing a dwarf?
Well, then if you guys are all dwarves, then that means... I got the white string and I'm gonna get to play Snow White. Tough luck, guys.
Not fair.
Humans are such gullible fools. Now Darian's mine for sure.
I love that. Guess I'm going to get to play Snow White.
She's having fun chewing the scenery. She knows she's the villain.
I also really love Jupiter's line of like, me playing a dwarf? Like, that's very funny.
We find out soon that they don't even have dwarves in this play. I signed up for dwarves.
I also really like the idea that the lead in the Magical Girl Show has to play the Wicked Queen in this episode. Like that's just such a funny comedic idea. Like what a great idea for for a story for the episode of such a reversal of roles of the lead villain of this.
They have to punish her.
Yes, Serena must suffer at all times. I mean, I love that reaction shot of her with her swinging pendulum tears. Like that's so funny to me. I've seen Sailor Moon reaction shots all over the place on the internet. She's perfect for memes. And yes, that's when Anne tries to get Alan to join in and be one of the dwarves, and he's like, "No, I'm not going to do that. Like you're forgetting the whole point of this thing.
You just want to kiss boys."
Yeah, and I don't. And I want to kiss girls. That's totally different. I like too that in the subtitled version, she says like, "Don't you want to be one of the fairies?" So apparently, it's like the 7 fairies that help him.
Okay.
But this dub definitely counts on everybody assuming that this is supposed to be the Disney version of Snow White that they're posing. Whenever a thing happens that's not like the Disney Snow White, they then make that a joke of saying like, "Oh, well, they did this instead." And so then Alan summons Cardian Pierrot.
Who's this little Pokemon jumping around?
Right, yeah, but in the Deke dub, they speak full sentences.
Yeah.
Yeah, but in the Japanese, Pierrot, be Pierrot. Yeah. Which in Japan, they love that French clown, Pierrot. That was the name of the production company for Ranma One Half as well.
That's true. I only know Pierrot from like Japanese things.
Mm-hmm. No, they're real Francophiles in Japan. They love those guys, the Pierrots. I mean, Americans, we hate clowns enough already, and then you tell us a French clown?
Actually,
No,
I'm reading,
you.
He's an Italian clown.
Well, almost as bad
He's
as a
part of the
French
Axis
clown.
powers, Henry.
Okay, boy, yuck. So once the Cardian is gotten, they then head over to the school. Well, it's a school establishing shot, but in the Japanese version, it's the Juban Community Center. So, but let's say they're practicing at school. And that is where Anne tries, she's very committed to practicing this scene.
Okay, Snow White's asleep, and Prince Charming comes over and gives her a long kiss. This moment's the climax of the play, so we gotta get it absolutely right. It's gotta be believable for the audience. So come on, Prince Charming, give Snow White the motivation she needs to wake up.
Yeah, but then let's move on. Look, it's Snow White. Oh, Snow White, you're ice cold. How long have you been lying here alone in the woods? If only I could warm your ice cold lips with my kiss.
I really hate this part. I really, really do.
Now's my chance.
No, Snow White's supposed to be asleep. If you want it right, Anne, you can't move.
Rats of rats. Hey, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Shall we do it again then, Darian?
I think we've had enough. Yeah, we've got the whole rest of the play to rehearse.
What are you talking about? This is the most important scene. We can't just leave it half finished. Come on, you guys. Why are you so selfish?
Ha! Selfish! You got that one cornered.
I don't know about that
I don't know about her.
I don't know about her.
You know what? That's one of two sorries. When I was signing up for this, I was like, all right, bring them on, because we're big fans of OKKO, Let's Be Heroes, and sorries are all over that series. Not a Canadian series, but they're calling back to things like this.
Yeah, it's because Ian JQ, the creator of the show, like he grew up on Canadian dubs like this one, and he just loves that sorry. Like, and also she says about as well. I like that. I really like the comedy of her internally. She's like, I almost tricked him, but she's like, oh, I'm sorry. I just got into the role there. That's also so funny too, that the way Darien doesn't read it as her making a move. He's just like, you forgot your motivation. You're supposed to be motionless here.
Darien is kind of dense because she's like, let's walk home.
Yes, yeah.
It's like, you're weird.
Well, Darien is so true to Serena, he would never even think another girl would be into him. Well, also, a secret of this season is Darien has a lot of head trauma. That the Moonlight Knight is technically his like magical amnesia come to life. So you can just explain away any like dumb thing Darien does, is that he doesn't have all of his memories back yet. If you remember when we did the first episode of Sailor Moon R, Serena got her memory back, but the rest hadn't yet. By this point, all of the scouts have their memory back, but not Darien.
Okay.
Darien doesn't know yet. But yeah, I like that Anne is just constantly like, no, let's keep practicing the kiss scene. It's very important. It's the whole part of the play. And the way she says, like, give Snow White the motivation she needs to wake up. Like, she really pops that P after two. So, yes, the characters leave. Melvin and Molly head out. I really got to give it to Anne for, she's hiding in the corner, and then the second Darien gets out the door, she's like, hey, why don't we walk home and practice the part? Let's talk.
She is totally horned up.
Well, that is such a, as I learned from watching Tim Rogers' video on Tokimeki Memorial, that's a very big part of like, the high school courting ritual of like, walk me home. I'm just a girl who needs accompaniment home from a big, strong man like you.
We don't get that with car culture. That's why our youths were stifled.
You're right, man.
Or romantic youths.
Yeah, if these kids could take trains someplace and walk places, there'd be, I don't know. I guess kids are sexual enough now. Forget that. I also noticed a thing too, when everybody's talking after she leaves and they're all kind of mad at her, Venus does so many things where she has her pointer finger out, where she goes like this or like that, like a lot of pointer finger acting with Sailor Venus. But one of the best scenes ever of animation is Serena, her reaction, right? I love that.
She's like grabbing her hanky and twisting it, and there's like flames behind her.
Oh, so good. The way it works, like she has this line, like this taut line of her hanky pulled up. And as she moves it over her face is revealed to be even redder. And then with flames in her eyes, she tears it in half of just, she's so mad and jealous. It's such a great reaction.
I think that was on the coming up on this episode little clip package.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the best shots in the episode. It was very smart to include that. But this is when the rest of the girls accidentally reveal to Serena that they know that Anne cheated.
She's not only a terrible actress, but the little virus cheated to get the best part.
Cheated? What are you talking about, Mina? Come on, tell me. You guys are hiding something, aren't you? Why am I always the last one to find out the juicy gossip around here?
Stop that! No crying. Anne scammed us. Those stupid strings of hers were a bogus setup. One string had a red tip and the rest were blue. Somehow she managed to rip her string and then made it a white tip.
Oh, I knew that slimy little bloodsucker was up to something, so why didn't you call her on it?
Couldn't prove it, and besides, none of us would have liked seeing anyone else get that part.
Yes, I feel kind of sorry for Anne. I mean, she hasn't really made any friends since she moved here, and when you see her, she's always by herself.
She sure wasn't going to let anyone else get that part. In a weird way, I admire her determination and nerve.
I don't get it. Why are you so nice to her? I mean, she sure doesn't feel like a friend to me. And she cheated! And cheating is still cheating, all right?
I kind of agree with Serena. I don't care if you pity this girl.
Yeah.
Like, she cheated. She stole, and she actually is a real jerk,
Cheating is no way to make friends in a new town.
Yeah.
When you cheat, you make an eat out of C and H, as Crow T-Robot would say.
I like, too, that once Serena realizes it, you can see that all the other girls had agreed to not tell her because she'd react poorly. And they're like, great. Serena knew. Now we got to tell her. Look, we all know she cheated. I think it was obvious to all of them the second they saw her pull out the white one, except to Serena, who was like too stupid to understand it. So that makes that scene even funnier.
They were right to not tell her, because their plan after this is like, let's put on a really good play.
Yes, yeah. They're like, you know what? I do understand the way of thinking of like, well, by her taking it, then we're not jealous of anybody else getting the part of Snow White. If it's her, then none of us are mad at each other. You know, that makes sense.
And she's not in our friend group and never will be.
She'll always be on the outside of it. And they're going to forget her as soon as she leaves her filler arc and does not stick around. And I also like that Ray at this point, Mars, she's just like, stop crying. Just like, shut up. Like, all you do is cry.
All of the like, all those noises are very good in the background.
And now all I can hear in the background is the different leitmotifs of the Sailor Moon theme. And yes, Mercury is the one to throw out the sorry there. So yes, they all head back. They say they're going to confront Anne about this, but that's when they spot her walking up the stairs to her shrine, which in both Japanese and this version, that's where a commercial break is, which that's a weird put to be like, oh, are people going to change the channel? They'll have to wonder, why is Anne walking upstairs? That doesn't seem like a big danger.
Yeah, it turns out it's inconsequential.
Yeah, she went to the shrine to pray for a good show, and also to pray. She says that out loud, and then internally says, and she wants to kiss Darien. Like, I hope I get to kiss Darien.
I guess Deke wants you to think like she's praying to our God.
Yeah.
For no reason.
I guess you don't see the full like clap of the.
I thought the clap was left in.
Oh, maybe it was.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. But that's when they decide they just pity her too much. It's extra funny that all of the girls are saying like, well, okay, let's just put on the best play. And Serena is still going like, oh yeah, no, I'm just, yep, I agree, guys. That leads to another incredibly funny just smash cut to like, you have all of them at night saying we're going to put on a great play. And then smash cut to an unconscious Snow White surrounded by people in animal costumes chanting.
And in the first dub, the Deke dub, they have a lot of fun with making the characters act poorly in terms of their acting ability. That is not happening in the new dub. And I wanted to ask Nina to take a listen to that scene, but I didn't, to the Japanese scene, to see if they're acting poorly, because I don't think they are. If the new dub is accurate, I think they would have translated that, but I think they're just having fun with bad acting in the original dub.
I think it is a liberty was taken, but I like the idea of the Deke one people saying, these are 15-year-olds. They're not good actors.
Also, if you do a bad take, we'll just keep it.
Yeah,
it'll streamline the process.
That too. But yes, the play is continuing.
Poor Snow White didn't recognize the Wicked Queen, and that was a terrible mistake. For when she bit into the poisoned apple, she instantly fell into a deep eternal sleep.
And no matter how hard we tried, none of us could wake her.
Poor Snow White. Will she ever awaken? No matter what, we, the animals of the forest, will stand by her.
That'll be a really long time.
I've had it with this itchy costume. We were supposed to be dwarves, remember? Not animals. I feel like some little 5-year-old back in kindergarten. I'll say I'm roasting in this gorilla costume.
Come on, girls. You're the ones who didn't want to be dwarves. Huh? It was an awful lot of trouble to borrow these costumes.
We're doing Snow White, not the Jungle Book.
But I think they're perfectly suited to you.
Help! I can't get up.
And how about Serena's costume? She's never looked better. Come on, guys. Let's get back to rehearsal, okay?
Oh, if only a World Wicked Witch had cast a really terrible spell on that queen.
Even her thoughts have a muffled nose.
That's funny. I like it. I like hearing, Terry Hawks just like holding her nose as she speaks for this scene to imitate having I guess the fake nose over her. That's so funny seeing Serena like being so pissed off at playing the Wicked Witch, but she kind of has to keep it inside because Darien's there and she doesn't want to act out in front of him.
Also, I heard Boro.
Oh yes, yeah, I definitely heard a Boro in there.
I didn't hear a gain in this episode.
That's the bad acting is so funny, especially I think Jupiter is voiced like the worst actor of the group, which is funny because she had said earlier that she had the best talent in acting. Instead, here she's saying, "Oh no, the Wicked Queen has done." I think it was in the subtitled version, Melvin does say that, like, well, we wanted to do it a little differently and surprise people, so we did that instead. I kind of like that in this dub, Melvin says, you guys said you didn't want to be dwarves, so I got animals. What do you want from me? I also love that already Jupiter, who is sensitive about her height and being seen as, you know, too tough of a girl, she had to be a gorilla of all characters. That's extra funny to me. And a very Disney line of, we're doing Snow White, not the Jungle Book.
Jungle Book, yeah. They're obviously thinking about Disney. But in the next scene, I believe Anne is inventing the body pillow, the anime body pillow.
Yes, yeah.
Her husbando pillow.
I was shocked to see a character like fantasizing and kissing a pillow kept in the Deke version, you know?
And then like Alan is just like, I want to kiss Serena.
Yeah, I like too that he walks in on her and she's like, excuse me. And then he's like, whatever, I'm getting out of here. And he looks up like, I wish I was kissing Serena.
That like this is I forget if it's any better in the actual other dub or the subtitle version, but it's just like we have the scene and then he like over explains. It's like, I wish I could be the prince and Serena could be my princess. Just like, yes, we saw an image of that.
I think that's basically in the Japanese version too that I watch, or with the subtitles anyway. Which also is funny because we talked about this in the Dragon Ball one, but I think Toei didn't take very good care of these audio masters either, because the footage looks good, but it has the same audio issue as early Dragon Ball of just like, it's like this Deke recording sounds better audio quality than the one on the dub for the Japanese dub. But yes, we then cut to Sailor Moon practicing at night, which again, I love. This is more like good, bad acting here.
I wish I could be the prince and Serena could be my princess.
Okay, so here goes. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? What? And the second fairest? Ways is the fairest, but that just can't be. How dare she?
Hey, the ham belongs in the fridge.
Can it, dweeb?
I really can't wait to see this place. Serena making a total fool of herself again.
That litter!
A bratty little brother, that's a universal idea, it makes sense. It works in a Japanese production or American.
You're saying that because you're a little brother haver.
Yes, I am. Well, I mean, especially like you were Serena's little brother.
I was.
So, yeah. I like that he can come in and be like, you're a bad actor. I can't wait to laugh at you at the school play. And, looking at the setup, they had this community theater budget pretty good. But I guess they did sell a lot of tickets.
They bought like 6 costumes for this.
Full costumes for everybody. And the entire set is like, it's really big. This is not a community theater production. Or maybe community theaters in Japan have better budgets than an American community theater. Then, the play is just about to start, and of course, then we get the typical thing that happens in this, where the fight starts on stage, and it's actually everybody thinks it's the play itself.
This is not part of the act. Please help her.
This is where Pierrot appears. There's a funny bit of them saying, like, maybe she's the 7th dwarf? And I also laughed at the animation of Pierrot breaking apart the set with a unicycle. That's so silly and funny.
It's funnier in Japanese or in the other dub too, where it's just like Pierrot.
Yeah, Pierrot.
Instead of saying, I'm going to bring down the house.
Yeah. This is an important bit here where Anne tries to stop her, gets hit with an expanding red ball, smashes into Darien, and then is a very funny reverse of Darien, Prince Charming, is knocked unconscious and she's going to steal a kiss from him, but she then gets knocked out and can't do it.
I thought that was a funny little thing that I'm surprised they kept in the Deke version, where she likes landing on top of him. She's like, oh,
yes, yeah. I mean, she's face to face with him. Yeah, it's but also it's an important plot point for the mystery arc of this filler arc, which is, who is Moonlight Knight? Because obviously Moonlight Knight is Darien. I mean, come on. But
it's a real Racer X situation.
But when he's knocked unconscious here, you're supposed to go like, well, then I guess he's unconscious for the rest of this, so he can't be Moonlight Knight, right? But the short version is it's magical amnesia, and it's the part of his memories that knows he was Tuxedo Mask, and he then took on an Arabian Nights kind of flair. So that's who Moonlight Knight is. And then very conveniently, Molly and Melvin also get knocked unconscious thanks to just like tripping. And so we didn't even really get to talk about it, but Molly's voice is also she's like a Southern Belle, like from a Tennessee Williams.
Is she like Osaka person in the original show or something?
Maybe. I mean, she's just supposed to be your kind of awkward friend, I guess, but a big choice in the Deke dub for her. And so they all smash into a pile and they start arguing over what's going to happen. And then, boom, we get a very snazzy transformation sequence.
Oh, Darian, you tried to save me.
Get out of here, Molly. That thing's dangerous. What?
Get off me, Lita.
Get off my foot. You're smashing my arm.
If everyone would just calm down.
I can't breathe.
Hold on, Molly, don't worry.
Now for my next act.
Do something.
Get off me first.
We put a ton of work into this play. How dare you spoil it? Moon Crystal Power!
And then, boom, we get the Crystal Star version of her transformation, because this is after she gets her Crystal Star, basically like makeup compact, I guess you'd call it. That's her transformation. And yeah, even with them removing the boob line, I'm still kind of shocked they got away with this nude-ish transformation here.
Yeah,
on
I was
TV.
surprised.
Even though it's like, you know, there's nothing, I don't view it as sexual. Like, it's at best an artistic nude.
Yeah, it's
I'd
like
say.
silhouette.
Yeah, but still, in 1995, I'm shocked they got this on American television. Maybe that helped in syndication versus not syndication too. So, yes, she goes through the whole amazing transformation sequence. I love every part of it. Then, you know, she jumps on stage and really stretches imagination that nobody in that audience recognizes Serena.
There's a joke, I think, about like Serena's butt.
Right.
Tell me if I'm wrong about this, where she's like, we worked our buns off to get this play off the ground, and some character goes, no kidding.
Oh, yes. Yeah, you're right.
Are they talking about her butt?
I guess they mean like, yeah, your butt's so tiny, you must have worked it off. Like, maybe, I think you're right. Actually, yes, I have the Sailor Moon introduction here.
We worked our buns off to get this play off the ground.
No kidding.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna let you ruin it. We made it this far, and then you had to go and spoil it all, you crummy clown. I stand for love and justice. And in the name of the moon, I'm gonna punish you. I'm Sailor Moon. You're taking a big pratfall, and I mean you.
Oh, yeah, it was the villain who said that.
That's right. That's a real late insert there. Like, you're not kidding. Like, and of course, in typical Sailor Moon fashion, she makes her announcement and then is instantly captured and just tied up. And there's the U.S. insert of a commercial break there. And
that's a good act break.
That is, yeah.
Like a weird vine comes out of the umbrella and electrocutes her. Yeah.
I expected to hear her screaming more, though. I feel honestly nice for the voice actress. She didn't have to do a giant scream all through that section. But then also in very typical Sailor Moon fashion, she is instantly captured and then saved by a man off screen.
Yeah, I mean, I think I said this on the earlier podcast, but the battles in Sailor Moon aren't interesting. It's just like one person does a spell or two people do a spell and it's over. There's no like weaknesses and strengths and using the environment. It's all very just like, well, here's a flourish of animation and the thing is dead.
For most of this fight, Pierrot, I understand why it failed. It stays still and doesn't do anything. It really just listens, you know? I do like that Moonlight Knight says, there's nothing worse than a greedy stage hog. And then, boy, talk about padding. Every Sailor Scout has to appear and fully introduce herself.
This is me, and here's my thing.
Yes, yeah. Let's hear every piece of it. But, I mean, again, they probably, on the animation boarding side, they're like, we need 2 more minutes at this point, and we can't really draw people fighting. Okay.
We could draw people posing. Yeah. Does that help?
And it turns out it does.
There's nothing worse than a greedy stage hog. The show must go on. I'm at your service, Sailor Moon.
It's the Moonlight Knight.
All right, Sailor Moon makes the scene. Maybe this won't be a turkey after all.
I am Sailor Mars, and believe me, I'm not clowning around. I call upon my Firebird.
met my friends Mars and Jupiter? Some people might call me a bookworm, but my most lethal weapon is my brain. Beware, because I am Sailor Mercury!
You're thinking I'm just a pretty blonde. In my case, what you see is definitely not what you get. Sailor V is for victory. I'm Sailor Venus! We're the Sailor Scouts!
I like how there's even more time killing where Sailor Mercury is like, you've met my friends, but now it's time to meet me.
Yes, yeah. That's so great.
And it took me, someone pointed this out on Twitter, and it seems so obvious now, but Sailor V is C'est la vie.
Oh, wow.
As in, that is life, my friends.
I know that never hit me before either, man. She's my favorite posing because she brings in her fingers over her eyes and then opens it into the V and looks out.
She's
through
doing
it.
the Batusi.
It is the Batusi. Yeah, I mean, it's all very fun just posing, and I think from a writing standpoint, this is them leaning into the dramaticness of the characters. Like every time Sailor Moon enters the scene and gives her typical like, in the name of the moon, I'm going to punish you speech. So this time they're like, you know what? We've got spotlights. They're literally on a stage. Let's just pose it out that all 4 of the Sailor Scouts join her on stage and give their own big ass speech.
What are the tech crew doing during all this? They're like, who are we lighting now?
I know. When the spotlight first hits Pierrot at the start of the fight, I'm like, well, who's doing that? Is Alan doing that? Who's doing this? And a couple little bits in here. Behind Sailor Mars and Mercury, they're either red or blue, is the classic Hokusai, water cresting painting behind them to give them both more of the like old Japanese flair. And then meanwhile, when Sailor Venus finishes her speech, she is standing like the birth of Venus with the clamshell behind her, like Botticelli's famous painting.
I have seen a naked chick riding a clam before.
So then, after all that, all Pierrot does is blast off head spikes that they all dodge, and then she gets a ward thrown in her face, then she's frozen, and then she's hit with the scepter. And that's that. Like, what a loser, man.
Again, the fights usually are not about like strategy. It's just about like, well, here's what we have time and money to show you.
Here's the clip package of every character's, attack that we did. I also, compared to the 4Kids style that would come just a couple years later, when Ray throws her ward at them, like it's just Japanese text on screen again. Like, yeah.
Those are magic runes. What are you talking about?
And I liked hearing Mercury call Pierrot a creepazoid. That gave me a little laugh, too. And yeah, then Pierrot just goes out like a punk, just stands there and takes it, man. I really do love the animation on the Moon Scepter attack. Like, the way she pulls it out and it kind of, you get a real perspective shot on it. You move all around the body. It's a really, really cool shot. And yes, they beat it. And then Moonlight Knight, similar to Tuxedo Mask Fashion, goes like, well, I did it. I'm out of here. We all know the meme. Like, but you didn't do anything. Goodbye.
The moon prop takes him away to the rafters.
Yeah, who's moving that prop? Yeah, Melvin's unconscious, so we know it's not him. But yes, the ladies love the spotlight in the end here.
Magnificent performance, Sailor Scouts. Take a bow, ladies. You deserve it. See you around.
Don't go, Moonlight Knight.
I get it.
I like the spotlight.
It's not fair, Alan. It's just not fair. Why'd you have to send that hideous Cardian to ruin everything I'd worked so hard at?
Enough, Anne. You've forgotten why we're here. We're supposed to be gathering energy.
Energy? Who cares about energy? I just wanted to be Snow White and kiss my prince and fall in love.
I know, and I just wanted to be Prince Charming.
I like his statement. We're supposed to be gathering energy. Oh, right.
I heard another about there, and also a did ya. Would ya? That's part of the fun. I like hearing it. But yeah, that's a cute little ending of just the girls celebrate. They're like, I like being on stage. And meanwhile, Alan and Anne are just like, they're both kind of, I guess, blue balls there, I suppose.
Alan didn't even try to do anything.
That's true. All he did was just fantasize. He's like, yeah, and I want to be Prince Charming. I didn't try to be that in any way. I barely got involved in the story at all here. Mostly all he does in this episode is look up and go like, I wish I was kissing a girl.
Anyways, back to the tree.
I guess he does play a flute briefly.
Yeah,
that's the one other thing Alan does. But yeah, that's the end of it. Except for, of course, as Sailor Moon says.
This is like the Wheel of Morality, but it's like stuck between two different things. It's like, I don't know what this was about.
Like they start with cheating. Cheating's enough, but they have to jump over to another
Stealing
idea.
is a kind of cheating. How much time do we got left? 10 seconds. Don't steal.
Anne cheated so she'd get to play Snow White. I bet you know people who cheat in little ways.
Glancing at somebody else's homework? Or stealing small things that don't cost much? But cheating is cheating, no matter how small. And if you cheat and steal in little ways, sooner or later you may very well cheat and steal in bigger, more serious ways.
So listen, don't cheat or steal. Do you know who really loses out most of all when you do that? You do. Sailor Moon says...
Soon you'll be stealing stadiums and quarries.
It's the same way of thinking, yeah.
What is the, cheating is cheating?
Yeah, it's like, I guess she's saying, don't, however you justify it to yourself, it's still cheating.
Maybe you know someone who cheats. You wouldn't cheat, would you?
You wouldn't disappoint Sailor Moon in such a way. Yeah. It's like, why bring it to shoplifting? It's enough to tell people, like, don't cheat. Cheating is bad. That's all you got to say. Like, I guess that wouldn't fill. They would have been 8 seconds short if they just said. I mean, also to fill time, they just have to say, cheating is cheating is cheating is cheating.
Let's spell cheating, C-H.
The dictionary defines cheating as... I wonder how much of that was written in the thing, just in the booth of like, we got to hit 30 seconds, guys. It's 30 seconds on the dot. That's how the PSA counts. I mean, I think, too, the PSA is an excuse for one more commercial break because it counts as content after the commercial. Like, they can end the episode right there, have a commercial, and then have the PSA right before the credits. So that counts as a fourth commercial break they can sell. But... yeah, that's a classic Sailor Moon says. I'll put in another one at the end of this, so listen to the end, guys, for the secret sound. But
the Sonic Says did have original animation, but that's because they were making the animation.
Yeah. I mean, G.I. Joe did the same thing, too. Yeah, most of them fully animated. This is even more of a cheat of just like, we just cut together shots from this episode. Hey, remember this episode when cheating happened? That's kind of like stealing stuff.
I'm looking at a wiki list of these Sailor Moon Says topics and looking at the names that are given to them by the wiki editors. Sailor Moon says, eat food. Sailor Moon says, babies punch back.
What?
Sailor Moon says, go to school.
Okay.
And let's find one more. Sailor Moon says, there's another one called School is Cool.
Oh, man.
Believe you're beautiful, Sailor Moon says.
Okay. Hey, thanks for the compliment, Sailor Moon. How many times they got to tell me how I got to like school? Come on, give me a break.
I'm forced to go. This is not an option.
I don't have a choice in the matter. My mom drops me off. And then we get a credits of just a reprise of the Sailor Moon opening. But it was fun to go back to hear the old Deke dub, which I didn't catch all the Canadianism of it in my youth. That makes it an even fun flavor now. But, everybody makes fun of them. Like, they were so sloppy back then, blah, blah, blah. But, like, they were doing their best with a really tough deadline and poor pay. And I think they at least found fun things to do, especially Anne's voice actor. Has so much fun.
And all the content restrictions, both in terms of, risque content and also Japanese content. Like, how do we translate this thing that they're doing? No American knows what this is.
Yeah, I think all the actors did a fine job in it. And yet again, thank you to Premium Patron Alex for picking this one. We really had a good time returning to Sailor Moon.
Mm-hmm. If you want to be cool like Alex and support our show and get all these episodes 1 week ahead of time and ad-free, please go to patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons. Sign up there for $5 a month. You get just that, but also access to everything behind the $5 paywall. That includes all of the $5 paywall podcasts we've made for the past 4 years. The most recent series we did behind the paywall is Talking of the Hill, Season 2, Part 1. That was 11 new episodes of our Talking of the Hill miniseries about King of the Hill. And there is going to be another miniseries coming up in the fall of 2021 for $5 patrons as well, so you want to stay tuned for that. And there is also a $10 tier. When you sign up for that, you get all the $5 stuff, but also access to one mega long podcast once a month, only for patrons of that level or higher. And what is that, Henry?
Bob is talking about the What a Cartoon Movie podcast. Now, if you're a regular listener of this, you've seen the free preview in your feed, but you haven't heard the entire episodes we do about an animated feature film once a month on the What a Cartoon Movie podcast. We have covered so many different films. Right now, we're in the summer of the Disney Renaissance, so you can hear us talk about Disney's Hercules and Disney's Hunchback of Notre Dame. If you liked hearing us talk about all of the Snow White stuff in here, I bet you'll enjoy that too. Or if you enjoy all this anime talk, I definitely think you would like going back in the back catalogs once you're a $10 subscriber to hear episodes like The End of Evangelion or Cowboy Bebop the Movie or Akira or Kiki's Delivery Service or tons of other great ones. Please sign up today at the $10 level at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons to hear an entire back catalog, almost 3 years worth of What a Cartoon movies, in addition to all the $5 things Bob just mentioned. One more time, that's at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons.
So as for me, I've been one of your hosts, Bob Mackey. You can find me on Twitter as Bob Servo, and my other podcast is Retronauts. That is a classic gaming podcast about old video games. Find that wherever you find podcasts, or go to patreon.com/Retronauts. Sign up there for 2 full-length bonus episodes every month. Henry, what about you?
Follow me on Twitter at HENEREYG. You'll stay up to date on all of the Henry Gilbert events in my life. And if you're following both of us on Twitter, please follow the official Twitter account of the network at Talk Simpsons Pod. At Talk Simpsons Pod. We'll keep you up to date when there's new episodes of Talking Simpsons, What a Cartoon, our mini-series, What a Cartoon Movie, when we have polls, when we have news on the Patreon, all this stuff. You stay up to date on the at Talk Simpsons Pod Twitter if you follow it. So please do that today at Talk Simpsons Pod.
Thank you so much for joining us, folks. We'll see you next time for our extended free preview of our What a Cartoon Movie episode all about Disney's Hercules, and we'll see you then.
Fighting evil by moonlight, winning love by daylight, never running from a real fight. She is the one named Sailor Moon. She will never turn her back on a friend. She is always there to defend. She is the one on whom we can depend. She is the one named Sailor Moon. She is the one, Sailor Moon.
Luna's gotta be one of my very best friends, but keeping pets is more than furry hugs and cuddles. If you love your pet, you want to give him or her good nutritional food.
And make sure they get all the shots they need from your veterinarian.
And don't let them wander into the street where they can get hit by a car.
There are so many unwanted pets in the world. Talk to your parents and your animal's vet about getting your pet spayed or neutered, Luna says.
Bye-bye.
Grandma, can I have the chocolate chips?
This secret recipe moment made possible by Emory Heart and Vascular Center. When Grandma needed heart care, she came to Emory. The difference? Emory Healthcare performs more heart procedures annually than anyone else in Georgia, which means better outcomes for our patients. And we offer advanced and personalized treatments developed by our top specialists that others don't. Like Grandma knows, where you start your heart care matters. Smart Cookie. EmoryHealthcare.org/smartcookie.